Miao Song joins us. First, some supporters to thank, and thank you for listening. Here it is, the fully integrated cloud CX platform that you need to act smarter, respond faster, and be first in CX. Now you can turn innovation into value, scale up when you need, and add new capabilities whenever the situation demands it. One experience, a single unified solution for employees and customers. One cloud, a single cloud offering based on AWS public cloud technology. One path for migration to the CX1 platform. The fully integrated cloud customer experience platform from NICE, allowing you to be first in CX. Visit nice.com for more. Leaders responsible for operations, information technology, customer experience, contact centers, customer care, service and support are invited to register for a free CCW digital membership. Membership includes networking with 100,000 plus qualified industry professionals, quarterly executive research reports, product matchmaking, and more. Go to ccwdigital.com to join the community. That's ccwdigital.com. Recorded in advance of Customer Experience Management Asia, Miao Song joins us to share her thoughts on the digital transformation journey. There are two perspectives on which to focus: the external perspective, how the organization is connecting with customers in a digital fashion. There you're looking at customer centricity and how you can improve digital engagement. And of course, the internal perspective, where you focus on digitalizing internal business processes, continuously driving improvement, automating internal processes to create an efficient organization, and so on. A third focus would be building advanced analytics capabilities across the organization, supported by big data. Welcome to CCW Digital on B2B IQ. I'm your host, Seth Adler. Download episodes on ccwdigital.com or through our app in iTunes, within the iTunes podcast app in Google Play, or wherever you currently get your podcasts. Miao Song.
So you should go to a lot of nice places. Depending where you go. You know, Singapore is really famous for providing a lot of choices in terms of food. So you can try local food, some laksa in Newton Circus, or you go to Chinatown to try some local food. But at the same time, if you try something fancy, we have a lot of things to offer. We have nice Japanese restaurant in this area. We also have some other Western restaurant in this area as well. So it offers a lot of variety depending on what you really want to eat.
I'm not going to eat any Western food. On the airline, on the flights over, They offered the Western meal and the Eastern meal, and I tried to dive into the Eastern meal. It's very interesting how they segregate us by our cuisine, don't they, on the airlines, right?
So I really recommend you try some local food. For example, try chicken rice in Singapore. Yeah. There's one brand called Tian Tian Chicken Rice, which is very famous, and it's not far away from here. Highly recommended you to try tonight.
There we go. So now I know where I'm going tonight. And Miao, you have been in Singapore for how long?
I have been in Singapore for more than 8 years.
Okay. And kind of half with J&J, right?
Yes, halfway in J&J. I came to Singapore at the end of 2009 with Lloyd at Shell. And then I actually spent 14 years with Shell. After that, I have 2 years experience with large conglomerate company called Cinemas before joining J&J. So time really flies. Now I have been with J&J Asia Pacific for more than 3 years. Okay.
And in that more than 3 years, I'm sure a lot has changed. What specifically is on your desk now? And then maybe we'll go back in time and figure out what your experience has been leading up to that.
Yeah, so it's if you look at how IT functions support a business and technology enable business innovation, this has actually changed a lot in the last 3 years. Specific in Johnson & Johnson, we pretty much focus on two things. One is how technology enable internal business capabilities. But also broadly, we focus on digital transformation in terms of driving the business growth, continuously improve customer experience, and customer centricity program in our organization. So those are the key things in our desk. I think those agendas are in some of the other companies' agenda as well.
Of course. And when you say digital transformation, to that end, everyone is involved in digital transformation. You mentioned at a surface level what that means for J&J. I wonder though, what do you need to attack as far as digital transformation? What absolutely needs to change? What absolutely needs to be kind of fostered? What do you have that does work, and what needs to be promoted? What needs to be kind of taken away, type of thing?
Sure. So for digital transformation, we focus on two perspectives. The first one is really around external perspective, how we connect with the customer in a digital fashion. We call it deepen customer engagement through digital channel. That's really primarily looking at customer centricity, how you improve your digital engagement with a customer. And from an internal perspective, we focus on digitalizing our internal business processes, continues to drive improvement, automate our internal process to create a efficient organization. And broadly, we have the third piece really focused on building advanced analytics capability across organization, supported by big data, because we want to reach to a stage that we know what happened in the past, but we also want to know what will happen in the future. So to drive predictive analytics based on data we collected from customer, but also from internal as well. So
how much of that is refining versus redefining?
I think if you look at refining or refining, I think redefining is probably 50%. Refining is 50%. So internal digitalization work is probably refining, but external customer engagement, digitalized customer engagement, those are probably more redefining. Redefining the way we run our business, redefining the way we engage with our customer.
As a CIO, this is a big, here we are at kind of another intersection, right? Do you see it that way? Is that fair?
Yes, it is fair. I think for CIO, I'm very excited than ever as a CIO, because I think this is a great time for technology to make a difference in the organization, regardless which organization you are. Every company is a technology organization. So
now they are, yeah.
I think that's where CIO plays a role, not just a traditional role of supporting function, most importantly as a business leader to shape the business, leveraging technology. For example, the conversation around digital transformation, I do see CIO has the best role to really convince the board to implement some of the digital initiative, not just for the sake of digitalizing the organization, but really looking at innovation, innovating the business model, innovating the customer channel, innovating, the R&D space. So it's very, very exciting.
Many conversations I have like this often put business versus IT as opposed to, one executive being capable of both, which of course is the case, right? Take me through why there is this false premise of business versus IT that I'm offered often.
I think if you think about a lot of organizations, you can still hear a lot of CIOs saying, hey, the business don't endorse us, they don't invest on us, we have problem with the business. Right. I think this is primarily based on in the past, the way we run IT. We run IT as a traditional function. So we were very passive. So we wait there until business tell us what to do. A traditional way of running ERP project, traditional way of running our infrastructure, that led to a very traditional, I call it traditional relation between function and IT. But in the new model, because the technology is so advanced, cloud technology, big data, virtual reality, all of this has enabled a much nimbler way of adopting technology. Right. Therefore, the engagement model between the business and IT has to be changed. So the IT organization has to be mingled with the business. So every working IT has to understand the business processes, and also the business has to understand technology better nowadays, because as I mentioned, every company uses technology. If you don't understand technology, how technology contribute to your innovation, your business model, you're going to be dinosaur very quickly.
That's exactly right.
So I think we have a role to play to be much active, to be as both business leader and function leader in an organization.
All right. So we agree this has evolved as we've gone, as have you, right? So Let's go all the way back. Where are you from originally?
I originally from China, so I came.
Where in China?
I came from Beijing,
Okay.
China. So
Uh-huh.
I studied in Peking University in China a long time ago, and started my career with Nestle, so one of the largest food company in the world.
Certainly, certainly. And as we were talking before we, started, the Peking University is a kind of a vaunted institution with some fairly well-known alumni, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So the school is very proud of developing a lot of leaders, true leaders in different times. So in the past, we had a lot of we have a lot of leaders who led the, revolution in China. And nowadays, we had a lot of leaders who led innovation in China. For example, the founder of Baidu, he came from Peking University as well.
All right, so maybe not that first group, but more your group of executives. What do you think it was about the education there that set you up to do what you can do?
I think the education there said why I was always reflecting what the university gave to me. It's not about knowledge of, computer science, being able to understand computer science domain knowledge. I think most importantly, the school actually gave us freedom to have critical thinking capability. So I really appreciate the atmosphere in that school where you have freedom to think about something which is very different with other people's thoughts. So I think the diversity of thinking really helped to generate creative idea, which I cherish most from my education experience.
Yeah, and how did you bring that forth to Nestle? What was your first remit? What did they have you do?
Yeah, so my first job, it was very interesting. I was the first local IT staff they hired in Nestle China. So when I came into the organization, I really had a lot of to do and to learn at the same time. To be honest, I didn't even have time to learn because there's so much work to be done, yet we have a large expatriate department, people who didn't have domain, who didn't have local knowledge at all. So I actually developed the infrastructure project. I had to learn how infrastructure running in a large organization. I started to learn ERP implementation a long time ago. But if I reflect my experience there, I really think it's a great challenge for me to learn and learn quickly and to grow quickly.
It sounds like they were teaching you kind of the business and you were teaching them the locality.
Absolutely. I teach them how to run. For example, we had an office relocation project where there were large components of IT infrastructure. And I had to teach them how to deal with the local vendor on infrastructure about 20 years ago. So, and then they taught me, hey, this is a technology standard. You have to adapt. But I taught them a lot of local domain knowledge as well. So I thought it was learn and win situation.
There we go. That's it. So how high did you rise within Nestle? And
I was ERP implementation manager before leaving Nestle. I actually implemented ERP system across China, including 10 manufacturing locations and 15 sales offices in China.
So I mentioned Crossroads earlier and how we're at one now. These ERP, take us through what that was. At the time, these were gargantuan products.
Absolutely.
These were gargantuan projects.
Absolutely.
They redefined the way that the organization worked. So take us through, without getting too far into the weeds, exactly what you had to do. How big of a...
The projects were very big. I can use example when I worked for Shell. We had, from 2006 to 2012, there was one of the largest global SAP implementation in the world. It took the company more than 5 years more than $1.2 billion to consolidate 200 SAP instances into single one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just, however, it's not just consolidation of fragmented SAP systems. Most importantly, it's a global-wide streamlining project in terms of streamlining the processes, consolidate some of the services. I'll give example, the master data services was consolidated global-wide 2 years prior to the system went live.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge effort. And in the manufacturing location I worked before, we spent about 2 years to clean data.
Mm-hmm.
So data cleansing was huge efforts. There's a lot of huge amount of work in terms of change management, partnership with the business to really have the business to own business processes and data quality.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really big change management project across all the organizations. It was done perfectly at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that suits.
Now you're talking about the Shell one or the Nestle one?
The Shell one.
Okay, yeah.
Nestle one was very successful as well. So I think it was done very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
But if I reflect nowadays,
yeah,
the technology actually offer much more flexibility to be nimbler. So if nowadays we do the same project, I think we could probably run it in a different way.
Well, that leads me to the question that I was about to ask,
Exactly.
which was the difference between the technology that you were using during Shell's ERP implementation versus the Nestle implementation. I would imagine the Nestle one was that in the late 90s?
Yeah, Nestle was late 90s.
So how much did the technology change? And
it changed tremendously.
Right.
Just take SAP example. Starting from R3
mm-hmm.
and then all the way to ECC6.
Right.
Now they're looking at SAP HANA, right? So SAP has announced that you have to migrate to HANA by 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So technology shift tremendously from, for example, from a traditional premium hosting
mm-hmm.
all the way to clouds.
Mm-hmm.
So nowadays, if you're not on clouds, you're not even on the trend, right? Not even in the scope. So that shifted a lot. And also at the same time, the integration with other systems become way easier, nimbler, cost-effective than ever.
It feels like what you're saying is the Nestle implementation was essentially analog.
Yeah, and then I think I heard that they actually reform nowadays, to be much modern,
Sure.
right? So,
but I'm just saying when you
that
were
time,
doing, yes, exactly.
It was cumbersome at that time, so
Right.
we had to work really, really hard to go live every single location. I remember 1st of January, we were about to go live, and that was New Year Eve. All of us worked really hard, and we celebrate New Year Eve in our work in a minus 20 Celsius degree
right.
in North China. It was an unforgettable experience before.
That's it. These are the stories that you take forth to your staff today, I would imagine.
Yes.
If you think this is bad, let me tell you about a time.
I even talk about the story to my daughter because it's a story that I worked so hard to get ERP online and go live. It was minus 26 degrees in cold weather.
Yeah.
And for a few days, we worked so hard on that. So I said, everybody has to work hard.
Yeah.
So that's an example.
What does she say?
She said, you can work smarter nowadays.
Exactly. That's exactly. It's very millennial of her, right? To respond that way. So I guess what, as we make our way to today again, what lessons did you take from Nestle into the Royal Dutch Shell years? You mentioned change management. How much of you knowing what you needed to do in terms of change management at Royal Dutch Shell did you learn from Nestle?
Yes, I learned a lot from Nestle in terms of change management because you have to really make sure that people embrace the change and people really like the change in terms of business processes, the tool, whatever. So communication is super important. And also, secondly, to make sure people feel ownership of their own job is super important. So, if a person deal with data on day-to-day basis, then he will have to make sure data quality is his part of his job instead of the function like IT is dealing with data quality. There's no way for IT to deal with data quality. So
Right.
that ownership conversation has to happen up front. Sometimes it's a tough conversation, but it's helpful to really clarify the responsibilities across organization to facilitate implementation of such kind of large system.
And it's a tough conversation up front, but it's even harder after the fact if you don't have that conversation.
Yeah, so after that, you need to continue to have that conversation. Who owns who owns business processes? Continuously to drive improvement of business processes. All of this has to be taken into consideration.
Yeah. You mentioned cleaning data for 2 years earlier in our conversation. Now that you're at J&J, are you still taking that type of time to
Not
clean data,
anymore.
or are we in a better place just generally?
We're in a much better place nowadays. I think the first technology is much nimbler. There's a lot of technology, a lot of tools to help people even doing data cleaning nowadays. So it's much effective. Secondly, as I mentioned, the way we integrate technology is so different today. If you look at blockchain, right? Blockchain can really help you to integrate data from different platforms, different systems to really help to drive data visibility. I mean, that's one of examples.
Yeah.
So I think nowadays we don't have to do the old-fashioned way of doing work probably
Right.
10 years ago with the new technologies.
Yeah.
And that's what I actually use in J&J. So
You're
not-
using blockchain technology?
No, we don't. That's
Okay.
we actually use different technology to consider to be much nimbler. For example, rather than traditional way of consolidating data, we use data lake technology. We also use in-memory data grids technology based on different scenarios to create data visibility rather than just building one data warehouse.
Right. So, and are you on your way to using blockchain technology, or you've chosen another path?
We are looking at opportunities. We're not there yet, but I personally believe that blockchain has a good potential to be used in healthcare industry because one of the challenge of healthcare industry is fragmented data. Give example, different hospitals, the service providers and insurance company as payers, they all got different platform, different systems. So if I'm a patient, I can't even take my EMR information to another hospital
Right.
at all easily today.
Right.
But with blockchain technology, it will enable the patient information, digital medical record to be transferred seamlessly across different platforms.
Which it almost seems like it has to happen, right? From a patient's perspective, I'm
Exactly.
pointing at myself, but
Yeah.
from your perspective, how quickly can this occur? And we are here at a beautiful hotel in
Right.
Singapore, so you're hearing some folks that are, I guess, maybe on vacation. I would imagine those are Americans because they're so loud, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably. Exactly. I was in the airport, and I was able to pick out who the Americans were as an American, which is an interesting thing.
And
know,
you can pick them out from the lounge as well.
from where?
From the lounges in the airline.
Oh, okay,
airline
yeah.
Lounge, yeah.
Well, getting back to what we
Sure.
were saying, as far as these digital medical records, how quickly can this happen with the regulations being what they are, healthcare being as fragmented as it is, as you mentioned, in one country, let alone all the countries. How quickly can we kind of find our way here, do you think?
I don't think there's a standard answer. Here's absolutely my personal view.
Personal.
Personal view.
Yeah.
It doesn't represent any company.
Anybody, right.
So I think depending on how fast the collaboration between the government, the payers, and the healthcare providers happen. I don't think it's a technology issue. I think it's an issue around how open people are willing to share data and how open they're willing to collaborate. I read news yesterday that Alibaba in China, they actually got into blockchain in healthcare space already. So they're building blockchain technology in healthcare with the support from different parties. So I think it is important people really break the boundaries to make this happen.
Yeah.
If the collaboration happens, it can happen very quickly.
And you say, I mean, Alibaba coming into the space, obviously that's going to be a good technology player, a big technology player, a smart technology player in the space that needs them. But your point was, it's really about change management. It's about the players involved as opposed to the technology.
It is change management.
Yeah.
Technology is there. It's just how you make sure that you don't have the constraint there. So if this hospital is not willing to share information with another hospital, there will be a big challenge.
Which brings us to customer experience, right?
Absolutely.
And so J&J, how are you looking at customer experience as we make our way into the last half of 2017 and on?
So I can speak on behalf of medical devices.
Sure.
in this region. We're looking at improve our customer experience and drive customer-centricity program. So initially, in the past, because we were pretty much focused on product and services, as most of the other organizations do. But with the recent change, I think it's driven by the industry. It's not even driven by the organization, because the industry is shaped, and we have to really looking at what customer really need, not just from product perspective, more broadly, what the customer really care about the services, what are the right product for them, what is the right engagement for them, any value-added services will be offered as part of a company offer. So all of this has to happen. So our system is built on this philosophy where we integrate the need of the customer, really having external view around our customer. Even it's used by our sales organization and commercial organization, but we took a very external view to focus on our customer centricity.
Okay, so very external view to focus on customer centricity. This sounds like what you should be doing. What kinds of technologies are you using, and what are you finding already?
So for our system, we use Salesforce.com technology, and we also customize some of the capabilities to fit for purpose of our specific industry. Because we are in medical devices industry, we have a lot of unique needs in our industry. For example, how we have loan sets in the hospital, in our surgery space, and we actually develop a capability to manage our loan sets. We call it set booking in our based on Salesforce.com platform. Those are not readily out of the box function. The reason we build that capability because we see a huge business value behind it, and also we continue to measure the business value generated from our functionality.
Right, and some of the decisions that you make, all of the decisions that you make are guided by regulations, heavily regulated industry. What can you do, what can't you do, and how are you doing what you can do based on that?
Yes, we really look at the regulation. I give you an example, the set booking functionality we build in Salesforce, and it's actually set is actually targeted to the patients. So we are not allowed to have patient-specific information associated with that set. However, we're not allowed to have the names, all the detailed information.
Sure.
However, we're able to put just a patient ID there.
Got it.
So that's where we actually differentiate to be compliant with the regulatory law in each country.
Got it. So we've got specific information, but we don't have that specific information. We don't even want that specific information if you don't want us to have it.
So that's the reason we actually dive into the details on if the regulatory law says this is what is required. Then we dive into details, say, hey, this is what you require, but then we really make sure we protect people's privacy.
Yeah, sure. Of course.
So that's where we get compliant with the local regulation.
All right. So it's all about privacy.
Right.
However, once we have privacy, then we go to innovate. Is that basically it, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the things very important is that as cybersecurity it become a bigger and bigger topic in all the industries, including healthcare industry. One of the key things for CIO to do is really make sure that you understand cybersecurity of each individual location and being compliant, using the right technology solution to be compliant.
Are folks focused on cybersecurity enough, do you think?
I think depending on which industry and which company, I do think some of the company really focus on cybersecurity because the loss can be big. I'll give you example. WannaCry virus happened this year, starting from UK. The loss has been huge. A lot of hospitals couldn't even continue with their surgery because it was hacked into the hospital system.
Right. Right directly into the,
they
healthcare.
Directly into
Absolutely.
the healthcare system.
Yeah.
And I heard medical devices is the next target for hackers.
Yeah.
So
I was in London at the time that happened.
Yeah.
It was right around the time of the election as well.
Yeah.
So what would your advice be to your colleagues then who are either paying attention to it as much as they should be or not?
I do think everybody has to pay attention. If you talk about cybersecurity, you have to pay attention to cybersecurity. I think you have to take a completely different approach to tackle cybersecurity.
What do you mean?
You can't use the traditional way to be reactive. So the traditional way of cybersecurity is something happened. I develop something to prevent it happens again. But what I can tell you is next time when something happens, when the hacking happens, it's in a different format, different way. Therefore, you can't predict.
Yeah.
So therefore, the best way of doing cybersecurity is apply hacker's mindset. Just imagine yourself as a hacker, what or she or he will do. Then you put your protection of your data assets, your company assets, just subject to a hacker mindset all the time.
Yeah.
That's the best way of doing cybersecurity.
Interesting. Preemptive.
Yeah, preemptive. Absolutely.
Right. So you're looking at new technologies. We talked about that. Cybersecurity is almost at the top of your list.
It is in the list of the organization.
Yeah.
I think it's in the list of all the large organizations nowadays.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure. Customer-centricity. And then what else would be...
The other one in our list is really look at the new technology to continuously drive digital health, continuously innovate the go-to-market model, our business model. So those are in our list. We're looking at virtual reality technology.
How so?
There are a few things.
Yeah.
If you look at virtual reality technology, it's now not really widely used yet because there are a few things. One is the cost of devices. We call it goggles or gear, VR gear.
Yeah.
Is still rather high. For example, we spent $800 for a Samsung VR gear or $1,000 for HTC gear. So the cost is not well accepted yet. But in the new version of mobile phone, the VR function will be enabled.
Yeah.
So that will drive the cost down tremendously. So therefore, the broader leverage of VR in all the domains. Just imagine e-commerce, online shopping using VR technology, manufacturing location, testing, remote control room using VR technology. We actually have a few pilots in this region using VR technology to help us to run professional education to the doctors. So the doctor wear VR goggles and just doing simulation of a surgery efficiently. So that's create a lot of value in a very cost-effective fashion. So those are some of the examples of VR technology. I think it's going to be widely adopted with the cost down and also the being mobile.
Right.
In the very near time, I think.
Being tied into our actual handsets, as we go here, it brings the cost all the way down and makes it unbelievably accessible. You mentioned training physicians. Any other thoughts as far as VR in healthcare?
I think training physicians definitely, and also I think probably even some of the some of the curation of some of the diseases, some of the chronic diseases. Help people to recover from the disease. There are some VR solution, to be offered to the patient and consumers as well.
There we
go. For example, obesity. If you develop a VR solution to really help people to imagine how they look like in the future, continuously give them encouragement through VR solution in a very cost-effective way. That's probably the best cure on top of just taking medicine or having a surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I personally see huge leverage much in this space in technology.
Yeah.
So technology enable better health and wellness for people. So how exciting that will be.
Your mind seems to be inquisitive.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was instilled in you from your parents. I mean, not everybody is the CIO of a Fortune whatever company, right? Were your parents very hard workers, I wonder?
My mom is a doctor. She's
Okay.
a doctor. She was actually a gynecologist before she retired. So I remember that she worked really hard to get where she was. It's all about hard working. It's all about recognizing what you can achieve, continuously to push your limit. So for me, it's important, very important. I continue to learn, not just learn what in my own domain, but continuously to learn new business, continuously have curiosity. That's super important.
Absolutely. I think as far as global society is concerned, if we all remain curious, we might be able to take steps to make it just a little bit better each day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Challenge status quo rather than being comfortable in your own zone. So, I think that's very important. We call it learning agility nowadays.
Yeah. You have to have it.
It has to happen, yeah.
30 years ago, you could get away without learning agility, right? What about, and then again, this is, of course, your personal point of view, just the state of education and the fact that folks need to learn differently and folks need to continuously be learning as far as, automation coming in and changing the very way that we work. What are your thoughts on all of that?
I think there's a lot of, again, this is my personal view. I think the innovation should happen in the education system across the board. I think it's not just teaching people the knowledge. It's not just to tell people, hey, this is history. This is Europe history, American history, or Asia history. Most importantly, to sparkle the critical thinking, to really make people excited about what they learn and continuously to push the boundary of innovation. I think that's a way of education. For me, that's the purpose of education. You learn not just the knowledge, but you learn the way to learn.
Right.
And you learn a way to keep your curiosity all the time through your life. So I think that's where the education should be changed and reformed. And I was talking to a group of people in the company yesterday, and one of the questions we asked them, everybody, is what do you think the best education can be offered by the organization? In that group, we have several interns, which is Z, I don't know which generation they are. They're probably less than 20 years old.
Right, Generation Z almost, right?
Almost Z. We have a group of people in the middle age, and we have a group of people in their probably 50. And then the mid-age and 50 all said, oh, yeah, of course, if somebody can coach us, coaching face-to-face, I would really appreciate.
Right.
But when you ask Z generation, all of them, 5 of them said digital learning.
Yeah, exactly.
So they said, I don't want to be coached in person. I want digital learning. So that's one of the things, I think one of the things on how education can be conducted to be more effectively nowadays. So everybody has very different preference, how we continuously keep the excitement of people, continues to explore new knowledge, and having that curiosity, it's very, very important for me.
I could talk to you all day. Unfortunately, we don't have that kind of time. So I'll ask you the 3 final questions.
Sure.
I'll tell you what they are, and then I'll ask you them in order. What has most surprised you at work along the way? What's most surprised you in life? And then on the soundtrack of your life, Miao, one track, one song that's got to be on there. But first things first.
Okay.
What has most surprised you at work along the way?
Surprised me at work.
Because we talked about ERP implementations in the 90s, and we talked about, VR in healthcare education.
Right.
So, along the way, what's most surprising?
What surprised me at work is there are a few things. I think one is really, I saw some of the CIOs of the company can become a CEO to run the business. I never thought about it as IT staff 20 years ago.
Right.
But I saw it happens, and it can happen. That's, I think, is a great motivation to a lot of folks working in IT industry.
Yeah, and that gets back to your point that you made earlier, in that IT has changed and businesses have changed and everything is digital, and it's all IT, and so for a CIO to become a CEO, it makes perfect sense now, whereas maybe 35 years ago it would have been a stretch.
Exactly.
Right?
It can happen as long as he or she knows the business, having the quality of leadership, and being able to innovate. So I don't see why they can't. They can. There is opportunity there.
That's it. What's most surprised you in life?
What most of my life is I never imagined, if you see, when I was a teenager, I never imagined I could travel across the world and relocating so many times for my work. And I thought I would ended up with somewhere doing being as a scientist, but doing a research job initially.
Right.
I never thought the world is so big, and as long as you embrace the world, there's endless opportunities there, depending on how you take it.
Yeah. We mentioned China, we mentioned Singapore, of course. When just talk about your years in the Netherlands a little bit, right? How was that?
It was a great experience, and it was both very joyful. It was super joyful from both career development perspective as well as my life perspective. So life part, I enjoy the quietness. I enjoy the life quality there. From career perspective, I learned how largest manufacturing is running on top of my work. And there was probably very few Asian female employees there,
right,
among thousands of them. So that gave me opportunity to embrace different culture, manage myself, change management, and also even speak the language. I spent 6 months to learn Dutch, so I could speak Dutch fluently at that time. And I really appreciate that type of learning experience.
You mentioned not many Asian female folks working there and then. What about female executives in general? I'm starting to notice that I am... I've noticed that I speak to a fair amount of female executives. It's not 50-50, right?
Absolutely. In fact, I have a passion in this area. I used to lead D&I Council in the Netherlands when I worked there. And in Johnson & Johnson, I was involved in women leadership initiative in Singapore. Right. So we do have data in this domain. So some specific data, when women become more senior, the percentage of women presenting the boardroom dropped. So, for example, at a manager or director level, you probably see 40% of women still there.
Sure.
But then when you see vice president or even boardroom level, the C-suite across the board, even in Singapore here, you probably see 25 to 30%. I don't have exact number, but sure, you can see the percentage drop. So there's something happened behind it. So I don't think...
It drops when women executives escalate, the rest of the women in the organization de-escalate? No, I'm missing it.
So basically the percentage of women as senior manager or director, that middle management level is about 40 to 45%. But then the percentage of women senior executive as vice president or C-suite is probably only 20% in this region in general. So there is a lot of work to do. I do see we really have to empower women to really speak up, to lean in, and to better present themselves in their career. And we need to also provide some social support. Women support women and men support women as well. Everybody support each other to really create a gender equality in in every organization to make sure people are comfortable to work there and continuously develop themselves.
Lean in. I've heard of that principle, certainly. You said speak up before you said lean in, though. What do you mean by that?
I find this probably specific in this region. I find maybe this Asian culture, I think people really have to speak up in Asian culture, make sure that the voice is heard, but also their ideas is conveyed in such way people can understand, can also put into reality. I think in general people here are quiet. They're a little bit worried about if they put up their idea, bring up their idea, it might be people think they're either stupid or something goes wrong.
Right.
They're a little bit worried about that. I think this has to be changed.
Yeah. The only stupid question is the one that isn't asked, I like to say.
I think so too. I mean, there's no stupid question. So you have to really make sure that your voice is heard and you have the visibility along your career development. That's very, very important.
Excellent. Most importantly,
Sure.
on the soundtrack of your life, one track, one song that's got to be on there. Now, your last name is Song. I need to point this out.
So the question is, which song is my song, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I like a lot of songs. I'm just thinking.
So it doesn't have to be a perfect song. It
I
doesn't
like
have to be...
Adele a lot.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I actually like Adele a lot. I think I like her song. The
Hello?
James Bond movie. There is a Skyfall.
Okay.
She actually sung that song. It was perfect. I like that song a lot.
We will put that on right now in our minds and on our phones.
Okay.
Miao, thank you so much for your time. Really,
Thank you.
very much appreciate it. And I can't wait to keep checking in with you on this female executive thing. It seems like this is your issue, right?
And I have a lot of passion on that topic.
That's it.
And I was in a lot of external conferences in the women leadership topic, and huge passion on that one.
That's it. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
And there you have Miao Song. Redefining is 50%, refining is 50%. So internal digitalization work is refining, but external digitalized customer engagement is redefining. Redefining the way the business is run and the way that the customer is engaged. Very much appreciate Miao's time. Very much appreciate yours. Stay tuned.